It is PCT day 58. We left mile 656 this morning. Windy night, but not really, just kind of low above us. Not really on our tents, and not too cold. I slept really good. Probably the best I've slept on trail, I feel like, in a couple weeks. So that was nice. Got up, had some hot chocolate, and headed off. I think we're about 2.5 hours in or so for the day. Probably somewhere around 6 miles or so. Lots of climbing this morning. But you can tell we are, well, hate to say it, but headed out of the desert because look at this. It's windy in spots. The sun is out and warm, but the wind is keeping you from hearing me right now. So we are taking miles of set plan for the house today. Haven't really looked for gut hooks. I know we got water coming up, or far out. I know we got water coming up, but we're good. We're not going through a whole lot with the wind and how cool it is. So no set plan, hopefully in the 10, 11, 12, 13 mile range or more. If it's easy enough terrain, it's the plan for the day. So let's go. So overall, we're about 35 miles away from Kennedy Meadows, the official end of the desert and start of the Sierras. I'm pretty excited about it. Totally over the desert section, and very hopeful to see a lot more wildlife outside of snakes. Definitely seen, and lizards, seen our fair share of both. Every once in a while a squirrel of some kind when we're in the higher elevation sections with trees and stuff, but just talking about it on the whole trip, I think we've seen like 4 deer, and nothing else of that size at all. And I was saying how in the first 40 miles of Oregon I'd probably seen, I don't know, almost 20, and we've done almost 700, so it's crazy. So we're hopeful for the Sierras. We've read a lot of the comments, people seeing fish in the streams and deer and all kinds of stuff, so that's really exciting too, to change terrain, see some more wildlife. I feel like our big pushing miles days are behind us because we're not pushing to get in any town specifically. Our average mileage is good for when we want to be, where we want to be by July for the trip back. So in theory, we should be able to take our time, soak it in more, and enjoy it, and enjoy doing so, because if we would have done that in the desert, you can't, you sit, but you're hiding from the heat, or you got to get to the next water. I don't know, it just feels like there's not as much opportunity terrain wise to just sit and soak in the surroundings in the desert. Plus we got all our trail towns where we're like, okay, we got to get this many miles to get into town by that day for a package or whatever. So packages are behind us now in theory, and same thing with trail towns. We'll just have some small general store, gas station type resupply stuff, but outside of that, we'll be able to really be in it out here and enjoy our surroundings in the Sierras, I think, a whole lot more. So that's very exciting. Still, I think 2 more days after today out before we even get to Kennedy Meadows, and then I'm not sure, I've heard before like people talk about Kennedy Meadows and supposed to be getting into the Sierras, and it's still the desert. So there's still like, I think, a few miles after where it's, still very desert-like or around it. So we'll see when we get there, but definitely these big rock formations around us and skirting the edges of the mountains and all that definitely feel different. But we've had that before. Not the same thing, but we've had high elevations at San Jacinto and Baden Powell, and even trying to think the last little section. There's a couple days where we're up in just trees and valleys and up by the wind farms on the other side of Tehachapi. So after we got out of the wind farms on the other side, and felt like, oh, we're finally out of the desert landscape, and then went right back into it for 3 more days. So not getting our hopes up. We'll get there when we get there, and it's a lot closer than it was in April. So
he's eating something.
Hi, bud. You want to move along? Come on.
He sure is. Come on, buddy.
Usually those ones just...
Oh, he's getting ready to go down in there. Come on, buddy. Here. They're pretty docile.
Oh, get off the trail there, friend.
You're gonna get...
I'll go that way.
Right down in the rocks.
Oh boy. Okay, end of PCT day 58. We're at mile 672.8, which gives us a long 16.8 miles for the day. It was a very long day, lots of uphill. What started out this morning looking is like, oh, it's more Sierra looking. No, it turned back into desert, got hot, the wind from yesterday disappeared. We're kind of between water carries again, drinking all our water down to the last bit before the next water carry, and then had to load up with 3 liters each to get up to our campsite. I think we should have now, we had 10 miles to the next water, but I think now at camp we should have just 7 left in the morning to the next water. Still looking at not Kennedy Meadows tomorrow, but at some point the next day. Probably won't push this again tomorrow because I think we kind of peaked out here a little bit, and then we're gonna go not all the way down, but down real far, and then another big climb tomorrow. So we'll probably stop at the top of that climb, and then have all downhill into Kennedy Meadows 2 days from now. So that's kind of the plan. Yeah, not much huge and different than normal today. Saw no hikers in the morning, and then saw a few more as the day kind of progressed on. So we're not completely alone or in the back bubble out here. So that's kind of nice to see a few people. Met actually a couple of guys from Eugene, so that's crazy. That was kind of cool, especially because we just switched to our duck hats, and they're like, "Go Ducks!" What, out here? And then they were from Eugene, and yeah. So I'll show you. We're set up here at the top of this little saddle. It's nowhere near Dad's tent, the big one, mine there. Nowhere near as windy, at least so far. There's some good sights here. Further up, and the trail goes off down that way in the morning, and then we don't know where, probably climbs up there and then down and then up again, big up. So yeah, I got service up here, so that's nice. Yeah, I think that's it. So thanks for watching, everybody. I shared our YouTube channel link with a bunch of different groups on Facebook and got a good response today. Megan's been working with all the algorithm information on the YouTube videos, making sure they get all the right tags and all the keywords and whatever, and it's been helping a little bit. So we've got more views. I think we hit 250 subscribers today, so that's a quarter of the way to 1,000. 1,000 is where you can get monetized and start making a little bit of money off this, so a quarter of the way there is kind of exciting. Supposedly, I keep hearing, like, the first 100 is the hardest, and then it's easy. First 200 is the hardest, then it's easy. First 250 is the hardest, then it's easy. It hasn't gotten any easier. Like, we're just trying to do whatever we can do to get it to kind of grow, and then vice versa, feed the website, which, if you haven't checked out, is www.wanderfueledchaos.com. Megan's writing a wonderful blog on there every other week, and eventually a blog from my PCT in Oregon will come out on there, and a blog about this whole adventure with Dad will go on there at some point down the line, so keep an eye out for that. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll talk to everybody in the morning.